guys, and welcome back. My name is MrCaproni, and this is your ACT Math Prep. Today, we're going to do a short video on converting between percents, decimals, and fractions. If that's something you struggle with, then stick around. And remember, if you want to keep working to raise your ACT score, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you can keep getting weekly videos on how to improve your Math ACT score. This is still going to fall in the pre-algebra section of the Math ACT. And in particular, we're looking at the ratio, proportions, and percent section of that. Remember, this is the largest section of the Math ACT, coming in at 23%, which is about 14 of the 60 total questions. So to start us off, what even is a percent? Well, percent just means parts per 100. So if I said I had 20%, that just means I have 20 out of the full 100. When you break it down by definition, it makes it very easy to understand how we're going to switch back and forth between decimals and fractions. Now, starting off, we're going to look at going from decimal to a percent. Now, the easy way to do this is just take whatever decimal you have and multiply it by 100. Now, a lot of times that's not a very visual way of doing it, and you just plug it into the calculator. If you like the visual way of doing it, that basically means that we're going to be taking the decimal point and moving it 2 times to the right. To the right, to the right. For example, a lot of people look at this, and when they see 0.3, they like to put that as 3%, which is a very common mistake. But instead, you need to move it over twice, which means we need to add a second place value there, which actually gives us a 30%, not 3%. The 3% is when we start with a 0.03, because then we actually have 2 place values to move past to put it just behind the 3 right there, giving us our final answer of 3%. Whereas the 0.003 actually has an extra place value, so we don't quite make it past the 3, leaving our final answer as 0.3%. To go in the opposite direction, percent to decimal, you just do the reverse of everything we just talked about. Instead of multiplying by 100, if you're doing this in the calculator, you would divide by 100, and that's going to give you your decimal. Or if you were talking before about liking to see it as moving to the right twice with your decimal, now we're going to go ahead and move to the left twice. To the left, to the left. For example, looking here at the 43%, you don't actually see the decimal, but remember, it would be right after the 3 before we move past our ones place. Now, if I move to the left twice, 1, 2, it places the decimal point right here in front of the 4. So that gives us a 0.43. Now, down here, in the same way we did last time, still moving to the left twice, would cause us to have to throw in another 0 right here, causing our final answer as a decimal to be 0.043. And if I take it one step further, if we already had a decimal for percent and we move twice, we still have a decimal, but it's going to be much smaller with 2 zeros out front. So dealing with fractions and percents is a little bit different. I'm actually not going to dive into detail on doing all of the work behind it because this really is going to be much faster in your calculator. And remember, on the ACT, the name of the game is speed. So when we're looking at fractions to percents or percents to fractions, you can go off the basic rule that it means parts per 100. So if I have 80%, that just means 80 over 100. Or if you have any fraction that's already over 100, you could easily switch that into a fraction. But if you don't, then it's much easier to just deal with decimals and plug it into your calculator. If you are dealing with a TI-84, you would put the decimal version into your calculator and then go ahead and hit math, enter, enter, and it will give you the reduced fraction. If you are dealing with a TI Inspire, it will already give you the reduced fraction starting off, and you would have to hit Control Enter to get to the decimal form. So what's this look like as an actual example? Well, I pulled this off of an old ACT test. Let's check it out. Greta serves food at a local wing stop. 3 out of every 5 customers she serves are male. What percent of her customers are male? Well, what is this question? They tell us that 3 out of 5 of her customers are male. Now, that means that this is a fraction to percent question. And we know that the middleman there is a decimal. So if I plug 3 over 5 into my calculator, it will tell me that that is 0.6. And by the rules we've talked about today, I would move my decimal to the right twice, which means we have to fill in a 0 here, giving us C, 60%. These are some pretty quick questions on the ACT, but they pop up time and time and time again. So by mastering this type of content, you are guaranteeing yourself some points on that math ACT. So with that said, we're going to call it a wrap for today. I hope you guys learned a little bit more about switching between percents, fractions, and decimals. And I hope you're able to knock these questions out on your ACT test. With that said, thanks for joining me. Remember, my name's MrCaproni, and this has been your ACT Math Prep.